and welcome to episode 19 of Web Visions. I can't believe that 19 episodes. I'm Shlomo. This is my co-host Vic. Hi, Vic. How are you?
Hi.
We just finished an interview with a man named Trak Lord, who I met at ETH Denver. Fascinating guy. He has a company called Quorum One. That's Quorum.1. We're going to talk about it where it's kind of a group that is dealing with the future of work. And which is very much something I believe in with DAOs and blockchain work, but they're going a little further than that. It was super interesting, and we're just going to go straight into it because it's about 35 minutes. He had a lot of good things to say. So let's just go straight into our interview with Trak Lord. My new friend, Trak Lord, I met him with Jay, who me and Vic work with. They were sitting having beers at ETH Denver. And so that was already like one thing was like, okay, I need to meet this person. And then the first thing Trak says to me is like, so you know Carfy over at Unlock Protocol, how do you know him? Because he saw me say hi to him like half hour before. It's like, so we've been around each other a bunch, I think, and just finally like knew each other's names and said hello. Trak, thank you for giving us time. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. And in fact, Shlomo, I am. You have still failed to disabuse me of the notion that we've met, maybe a decade ago, in the pre-pandemic years, because there are just far too many people and instances that would lead me to believe that we have come across each other. I think. Didn't you say that you used to be the proprietor of House of Shields?
Yep, I owned it for 10 years.
Yeah, I used to darken the shit out of that doorstep of that place. So, at some point.
I appreciate you keeping the lights on,
No
if
problem.
It wasn't for you. I got to say, during back then, that was a great time to be a technologist in San Francisco, owning a bar and being, deep into, the social web and working in online video. That was my life back then. So, Trak, tell us about you. What makes you you? What
makes me me? What am I working on? Well, I'll start with the first question. And just because there's so much confusion about this typically, my name is Trak because I was conceived on an Amtrak train and my parents thought it was really funny. So we're just going to get that right out of the way. That is a true story in so much as I haven't, done any sort of CSI approach to verifying it empirically, as I'm sure you can understand. But the name served me well, and I've been Trak for my life.
Honestly,
as well. Trak Lord.
I was just telling a coworker that your name is one of the greatest names I've seen. It's over the winter I got really into playing Skyrim, and I believe there are multiple people named Trak Lord in Skyrim, the video game.
Wow. Yeah, I used to play Skyrim.
Yeah, I could just see
it. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
You took an arrow.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on in the world? I want to talk about your thoughts and what you're working on.
Definitely. So currently, I'm working on this thing called Quorum One. Quorum One, which I'm now a partner and I guess technically an investor as well. Quorum One is a collective of entrepreneurs, consultants, and thinkers, and it sort of came together because a lot of business system architects and consultants were very quickly disillusioned with kind of the corporate structure of tech consulting and IT consulting. And so they decided to band together and kind of build their own sort of operating model. And just sort of, because they all enjoy what they do. So they wanted to basically ensure that they could continue to do this work in a way that they enjoy, that optimizes for client satisfaction, for consultant satisfaction, that isn't at all extractive or exploitative. And from that sort of relatively humble beginnings, they began to grow this network, this community, this membership. And membership has and always will be free. There's no cost other than a sign-up form to join Quorum. And when it comes down to it, it's primarily a Slack instance, right, with all of these other bits and pieces that have been developed into it, integrated into it. But in that time, and I'd say 2 or 3 years, I think they really started off in 2020. We've grown the network to around 200 members. About 20% of those are actively engaged in client work. And the rest are the most superficial level, just super stoked to be there. There are constant sort of discussions about reimagining corporate models, about emerging technologies and research, We have an entire channel devoted to something that is called, delightfully, emos. I don't know if you've heard of these. They're sort of DAO adjacent. They're called emerging organizations. And they're extremely, at this point, philosophical. But this is the type of thing that we are actively engaged in because we believe that not that the system is broken, but the system is not able to keep pace with the massive disruption that is not only just sort of coming, but is practically already here. And this is the massive disruption I'm talking about, is massive disruption to kind of work itself, especially in the tech ecosystem.
There was a lot to unpack there.
Sorry.
I had to stop back because I think we've talked about this. I'm definitely big into DAO governance. Such I've funneled a lot of money into a lot of social impact situations. One way, 2 years ago, I was calling DAOs really were nonprofit 2.0, where more money gets on the street and you have more human-centered governance writing and less legalese and just less middlemen and just get most of that $1 onto the street of what you're donating to. And that's really kind of what brought me into DAOs. What would be the difference between that sort of thing and this new model you're talking about?
Yeah. So currently we are not on chain. And that's not something that is like permanently fixed, right? We just haven't had the sort of resources or bandwidth to kind of evaluate and implement that type of thing.
Wait, but are you saying on chain helps correct my situation? Because
no. I'm saying it's my understanding that most of DAOs are somehow, like linked to the blockchain in terms of like governance or
sure.
So I'm saying we don't have anything linking us to a blockchain in terms of governance, but it's something that we are certainly considering, which is a non-trivial reason for why we were at ETH Den to begin with, because especially in the DAO space, we want to learn from that. We want to collaborate with people in that space. To wit, we were and are sort of enamored with the idea of decentralization, right? It's the most obvious anathema to, the centralized hierarchical corporate structure, right? Through our sort of like research and talking and ideating, we sort of landed on this thing that we are tentatively referring to as polycentralization, as in, because we believe that there does need to be, just like it's like you can have a little authority, right? You can have a little governance. That's centralized.
Yes.
But more importantly, we want to not just kind of like distribute what would be a traditional governance or authority model. We want to allow this kind of, pick your metaphor, your comparison, sine wave, rhizome, root structure that can kind of begin to act independently, govern itself, sort of this very sort of fractalization approach to incubating a bunch of products, incubating a bunch of agencies, incubating ideas, taking on challenges that the current corporate structure is just completely ill-equipped to face, at least at the pace that it needs to do so. Things like climate change, things like whatever is going to be democracy. These types of big issues, and I will say candidly, the 200 of us that do this, we're not ready to incubate a nation state just yet, right? Like but we're looking into this as future proofing and really thinking out a model that can not only just optimize for work joy, but actually start to quickly and efficiently and resiliently approach these like massive things coming down the pipeline, right? Things like AI, things like the emergence of the blockchain, things like, again, climate change that will radically shift the way that we are able to do business, the way that we're able to work, and the way we're able to live.
Okay, that's a good, very good explanation. But what exactly, like in current enterprises, what exactly pain points you see
Sure.
to fix?
So, and this is another thing, is like all of us try to stray away from the idea that the corporate structure is broken, right? Because I don't think it's broken, because it's working more or less exactly as intended to, right? But it's in the same way that a horse and buggy is not broken, right? It's just, it can still do what you need it to do. It just does it very, very slowly or very, very ponderously. So some of the things that we've identified about corporate structures that we are looking to improve upon. One is the overly centralized authority, especially proportionate to the amount of, employees. You have this C-suite approach to building a corporation, and you have boards of directors. And I don't think I need to disambiguate how and why that is and has been problematic in the past, right? Just think of in terms of scale, right? It's very, very difficult to scale that kind of authority and also keep pace with the way that technology is going, with the way like the rapid advancements, or even to like how long does it take to solve a problem, right? How long does it take to solve a very, very big problem? If you're thinking in quarter to quarter milestones, you're probably not ever going to be able to solve that massive problem, right? You're basically just doing the dishes, cleaning your kitchen, and you're never going to, organize anything else, right? You're just going to be keeping doing those day-to-day things. One of the other elements that we think, the actual nature and idea of employees is relatively outdated. It is, unfortunately, it has, and it's really, this is not a new development, or sorry, this is not, you can make the argument that this sort of structure has existed since feudalism, and I think there's legs to that. But when you look at the way that we exist as employees today, the primary reason to be an employee is not just to not starve to death, which is like the primary motivation of all humans and potentially all life anywhere. It's also to get health insurance, because we have inextricably linked the idea of not just not starving to death, but also like not getting sick, right? And not and being unhealthy to salaried employment, right? Like contractors don't get health insurance without some bunch of other, means tested and extra steps.
Or even service industry. Most of them don't get health
exactly.
insurance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they still, again, are focused on, things like paying rent, having a roof over their head, feeding and clothing their children. And so the idea of this kind of like employee, and also, no matter, and I've even looked at this across like almost any industry. You can do service, you can do knowledge work. I'll focus on knowledge work. So it's kind of like, even though I was a waiter for 10 years, but I'll focus on knowledge. Are you all American football fans?
Sure.
Yeah. So do you remember the Super Bowl a few years back where there was a power outage during the Super Bowl?
Yes.
And then 10 seconds later, Oreo tweeted this now like famous tweet, right? This like, it's in every single marketing big win case study type thing where it says you can still dunk in the dark. And then after that, there were these overly, just like flowery, triacly like analyses of the team. And I have a lot of respect for that team, the fact they were able to move that quickly, right?
Yeah.
But the emphasis on this kind of, isn't it amazing that this big company can like pivot and do this real quick? I think, yeah, it is. I want to know, out of the amount of sales and engagement and everything else that like Nabisco or Oreo got as a result of the success of that tweet, which was, again, constructed and executed by a very small team. I think it was like 10 or 12 people.
Uh-huh.
What percentage of those rewards did that team get as a result?
Right. They probably were forgotten by the end of the quarter that they deserved a bonus.
Honestly, yeah, the way that corporate stuff is going right now, it's very possible that one, they no longer work for Oreo, or two, it wasn't their choice to no longer work for Oreo, because we're in this system of, we have to demonstrate growth. We have to do that at all costs. And one of the ways we demonstrate growth or justify growth is by eliminating expenses. And those headcounts that come with health insurance premiums and Social Security, like all these things, that seems to be the easiest. So then you get these sort of like workforces of contractors as the companies try to basically, fill that gap. Everyone's overworked. Everyone is miserable. So like this idea of employees, when it's entangled with this other idea of the centralized corporate structure that works on a quarter to quarter basis, we think is also basically a horse and buggy style, because in that system, you're never going to be able to retain and keep the talent at a rate necessary to solve these big problems that are coming down, that are happening right now.
I mean, this is touching on, I got a million little parts that I want to talk about from what you're saying.
Yeah.
But in the end, what you're saying, this little part of staying with the cookie manufacturer, whatever, is, I'm a firm believer that the days of you having the job that you have that is titled X at a company Y for an extended period of time is long gone.
Of course it is. Well, we got rid of pensions.
Right. So there's none of that is, so then how do you get to, a place where these mega corporations, I guess it's starting to talk about B Corps, right? Isn't that what those are, where those corporations that funnel money back into their communities and do a lot of carbon offsets? That's a B Corp, right?
I mean, I think there are so many different approaches than the one that it seems that we've all resigned ourselves to is like the de facto approach. I think the other problem is that when you're talking about new companies coming in and providing like competing products, competing services, competing employee benefits, right? Those new enterprises, outside of basically anything that's happening in the ETH or blockchain space, are still playing this game. They're going to the institutional wealth first, like it's in their network, and they're saying, hey, we have this great idea. That's great. They hire a few employees, right? And they say, hey, we got to work our asses off for the next 6 months so we can get to the next round, right? And then everything's going very, very well. I'm not saying this happens 100% of the time, but everything's going very well. They're innovating. They've got developers, they've got users, they've got customers. They hit Series C or Series D, and they hit the like highest echelon of traditional finance. And then those guys, let's be honest, they're probably guys. Those guys are like, hey, this is all really cool, but this one part of what you're doing has basically never made any money. So if you want our money, you need to stop doing that and focus on this. And they say, okay, fine, let's do that. And so they start doing that. If this goes well, then there is some sort of exit. There's an acquisition, there's an IPO. And the employees that have been there the long term, that have been essentially, like not wasting, but basically grinding out the best years of their life, trying to make this thing happen, right?
Yeah.
IPO happens, and it's kind of like, here are your, just so you know, if you want to do anything with all these ISOs that you've earned over the past like 5 to 7 years, you need to, I don't know, you got like 100,000 in capital that you can use to buy them? No. Okay, well, you can sell them to us. Exactly. And buy the rest of them with like, we'll do the math for you. Cool. By the way, you're going to get a letter from the IRS saying that you owe taxes based on the income that we sold those ISOs so that you could keep the other things because you were, you see, this is absurd, right?
I mean, there's a reason why I've moved into DAOs, crypto.
There you go.
It's
but
literally,
even then,
as I call it, it's my positive nihilism that allows me to look at the structures you're talking about and say, I don't have to live those structures.
Exactly. And, and that is a sentiment that is going to multiply exponentially before we know it. And then these companies that rely on this kind of constant, talent, especially in the knowledge workers, we're talking about like software engineers or like hardware engineers or even basically like someone that's like in marketing or business development or product management, like something like that, where most of your day is kind of writing and analyzing and making decisions based on whatever game theory matrix that you've developed. Those people are going to opt out so quickly. The vast majority of the ones that stay, right, they're going to be fine, right? They're going to hit director level at some big company. They're going to invest for the rest of their lives, having secured their spot in this game. That's fine. Everyone else that doesn't make that, what are they doing? Because they're certainly not trying to go and repeat this process at a different company, right? Or at least not
the dystopian novel. You know what I mean? Like, exactly what they're going to be living.
Yeah. Well, I look at it as not necessarily a dystopia, right? This is an opportunity. Because if you have this giant kind of exodus of talent and knowledge and enthusiasm and passion, and enthusiasm, by the way, which was never, ever appreciated, most likely, by their employers, right? Regardless of what they say. How do you take that, that group and basically activate them and put this talent towards solving these problems, put these talents towards figuring out how we as humans are going to manage AI responsibly, right? How are we going to figure out new forms of wealth distribution, maybe even property distribution. And don't worry, I'm not talking about, like socialism and communism. I'm talking about a new business operating system. And that's essentially what Quorum is trying to. And the way we see it is like, this is an invitation for, whether it's nihilism, whether it's disillusionment, whether it's a passion and enthusiasm for being sort of on that vanguard of making work a better place, right? Making, embracing the virtualized future of work and realizing that there are other worlds than the ones that have been presented to us as singular, as this is your only option. Inviting those types of people to join this initiative, while also generating new products, new ideas, new things that can create wealth streams in a way that through things like fractional IP ownership can actually benefit everyone that's involved, right? And we're working with some of the people that are already on the forefront of this in terms of business models and scoping it out. Like, I can't tell you, maybe I'm a bit of a masochist, but I've very much been enjoying hitting all of these seemingly like deal breakers or hard stops in sort of like the legal and the financial compliance, because honestly, what we want to do is say, hey, if you get on board this, we'd like to pay you this amount of money over the next, indefinite timeline, because we're really happy and we're grateful. And you would be, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't be surprised because you said you're nihilistic, how difficult that is to do.
Right. No, but I'm positive that way, though. Like, I'm a firm believer in a lot of things you've been bringing up today. Is basically people really started intentionalizing it in various parts of their lives during lockdown. I believe part of society, how it is right now, wants you to be spinning mentally like in a habit trail, like a gerbil spinning in a wheel. And when you get a moment to not spin, and you could really think about your moments, that's when all of a sudden things like DAOs, crypto, future of work, why am I doing this? Where's my personal meaning when you have to work anyway? We have to work. Yeah. That's not something we're trying not to do in this room, but doesn't mean my moments can't be more intentional. And by intention, understanding who this corporate structure is and what my place in it is, and maybe I should move on. That's why I like working with Vic. He lets me do what I want, almost.
I know for a fact from conversations with Jay that is untrue.
Oh yes, we all
exactly.
Jay. I thought Jay. I forgot to invite him to this. I'm not sure he knows we're doing this. I almost invited him, but so it's more fun though if we could name drop him without him being in the room. Vic, what do you think about all of this? One thing I'm not hearing about what I need work to change is in the corporate structure. I like less meetings, and corporate triples down on filling in the day with too much meetings. And that's the one thing I'm not hearing about. It's like, I would like a person's day to be parsed in a more humane way and not the 9 to 5 sort of thing. Like, and I'm talking about in the sort of work we all do. Like, we are in a 24-hour world, and I feel we should be able to parse our day that way. But okay. Vic, what are your thoughts?
I think that Trak, you have really good ideas regarding the evolution of corporate structures in the future. One very important trend to keep in mind is the decrease in population, which happening in the United States and in developed countries like China, India, gonna be sooner or later there too, Europe. So the population is decreasing and the talent crunch gonna be increasing too. And the COVID changed a lot of things in self-perceptions and like why I'm doing here. I totally agree with Shlomo, with you about this. But this depopulation trend, this is really important thing because the talent pool gonna be very competitive for corporations. Another thing though, which is interesting, is the ability to govern and corporate innovation or corporate entrepreneurship to handle in this new way, I think this is a very sweet spot for new kind of organization and incentivization. And this is like what my take on this.
Yeah, I think one of the key things there is the competition, right?
Yeah.
So this is another one of those like preconceived notions where people could argue that this is kind of like a lizard brain or biological imperative thing. I'm starting to wonder if the lizard brain is actually a thing, or if it's something that we've reified because we've been told that it exists. And now we use it as an excuse to do terrible things to people, as though we're sort of like biologically hardwired. Anyway, that's probably a separate conversation.
I hear you.
But this competition thing, right? This whole, this sort of upward trajectory where you have to be better than everyone else, right? That is a problem. And it's a problem inside of corporations. It's a problem in people who are looking for jobs. It's a problem for people that want to incubate ideas. This idea that only one can win. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a couple of my other partners. Can you name a post like Series B tech company or software company that doesn't allege, claim, or establish itself or market itself as a platform?
No, that's the job. Like we all know this for the last 25 years is you can be a tool, but if you're growing, you have to be the platform.
You have to be a platform. You can't just be the best tool.
Right. You cannot make the greatest widget. You actually now have to be the platform for widgets.
You can
in the Silicon Valley way.
You can be the greatest widget, but Shlomo, you can't return value to shareholders that way. Right. So everyone's a platform, right? Yeah, we have one CRM, we have one basically business video provider, we have one communications provider, we have one payments provider, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is everyone a platform if there are so clearly leaders in every single category, just like well above everyone? We have one search engine, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about like brain drain and competition, and it's kind of like, doesn't it feel like everyone else who hasn't already won is sort of just running on this hamster wheel without knowing it?
Right.
Like, what are we doing?
I immediately think about Instant Pot. Instant Pot was created by this family, like father, son, or something like that, right? And now Instant Pot, their one widget is huge. And someone bought them, I forget who, but it's someone who has like a series of kitchenware, one of those huge companies like KitchenAid or something.
Yeah.
Bought it. And now are shuttering it down because what they found out is Instant Pots are so well made that people never buy a second one.
Oh no.
And so this amazing product that Instant Pot, when it was an individual company, was self-sustaining, sold to these folks, and is now shuttering because the product's too good, they can't sell enough. And it's a failure for this bigger business. That's just the first thing I thought about of your story right there.
As a society, can we just go back to the whole, if you made more money than you spent last quarter, you're a good business?
Right.
Right. Like that is the boilerplate definition of a successful enterprise, right?
Right.
Hey guys, we made more money last quarter than we spent.
Yeah.
Cool. Someone's like, well, was it?
Divvy it up, and then you divvy it up and put a little in the bank, and you just keep moving.
Yeah, and it's just I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole sort of like white rabbit trail there, but we are continued. There's this like downward pressure, again, especially on knowledge workers. I'm not going to speak for skilled laborers, day laborers. Like that has its own set of things, and I'm not entirely ssure that I have the experience or the acumen to even speak on how we go about doing that, right? But I do believe that there is a ripple effect here, because when you start to look into the past 25 years of tech, you start to find some pretty abominable repercussions of some of the successes, right? Things that affected the environment or will affect the environment, things that affect policy, things that affect the actual human capital that has worked and struggled to bring these ideas to market, right? So I think it's not just, woe is the knowledge worker consultant class, like what are they ever going to do, or kind of thing, or what will we do with all these marketers? Won't someone think of the marketers? I think it's more that
all the influencers in high school and such, when they can't get a job as an influencer, will be our marketers. That's basically
that may
and
already
so that will be the
case.
predominant job. Right now everyone is the predominant job is influencer, right? But it's those people, once they figure out they don't make a living that way, we'll have way too many marketers. That's what's going to happen.
Well, if you think about it, influencers kind of figured it out. Not all of them do it in a way that is intellectually honest, but when it comes down to it, especially post-pandemic, it was, hey, I have a lot of thoughts on things, and the internet has provided me a distribution channel to air those thoughts, right? To kind of explore this. Influencers are just another type of entrepreneur, right? I think they do get a worse rap than I think, because it's so visible, right? It's everywhere you look. And
also, there's a lot of aspects to the job influencer that older people devalue or don't even understand. And I think that's why it gets poo-pooed. Like, there's a lot of actual, just the internet and that job born of and in the internet has never happened before, just like we didn't have soap opera stars before television. You know what I mean?
Although I will say that the comparisons of a certain YouTube influencer doing things like, here's $10,000 to I don't know, drive this car really fast, or is pretty close to the whole late 1800s hunting humans for sport. It's a very similar sentiment. It's basically here's it's this weird wholesome bum fighting. I don't get it at all. And people are like, look at all this, they're returning value. I'm like, no, they're basically making it rain on poor people so that they dance for them.
The whole thing of having young influencers handing out money and food and cars to poor older people is a meme, and people effing eat it up.
They do, and it's just so strange to me. My favorite use of kind of an influencer or celebrity, do you remember that Blink-182 video where they just get a crane and a Miata and they drop the Miata onto a parking lot with the crane? It's not like the song was about destroying cars. They just thought it would be really funny. And that's the sort of approach to kind of these corporate rewards that I'd rather see, is just we don't need this Miata, but we're going to make a funny video of it and drop it on the ground. I think
Trak, give us some links. Give us some links that people can look you up.
Sure. Where are you gonna find me? I don't know. I long ago, most of my social medias have cobwebs on it because I got tired of worrying about my information being weaponized against me. But
that we will talk about next time.
Oh, I'm going to be on next time. That's awesome. That's better than most of the job interviews that I have. So you can find me at Trak Lord. I'm pretty much, all of the socials. Again, no promises that is regularly updated, but feel free to DM me if you enjoy what you've heard. If you want to learn more about Quorum, you can go to quorum.one, and that is O-N-E, not the number. So QUORUM.ONE. And if you go to that web address /join, you can just come say hi, see what's up, have some conversations. I am
definitely going to do that.
We would love to have you, and you as well, Vic. And tell Jay that if you two do it, he has to do it too.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, then it'll be like work, because I see these people all the time. Vic, tell our LinkedIn and YouTube people what they should do.
Click and subscribe.
See, that's his favorite part of the thing. Thank you, Trak.
Exactly.
Thank you, Vic. This is episode what? 19 in the can.
19.
Crazy. Trak with episode 19. We'll
see you all next
week. What?
It's my favorite number, 19. Yeah.
This was all kismet. It was made to happen.
Simulation's getting lazy.
Exactly. All right. See you all next week. Thank you.
See y'all. Bye.